drugs and psychiatrists. You can think about drugs as you like, whether they're good or bad. But the psychiatrist is the one who has to take care of the people where it goes wrong, or have to take care of the people who are in a similar state of mind. Sid Kaufman is a psychiatrist from the States, has a lot of experience with drugs, and today we're going to talk about coming down. I mean, taking a trip is one thing, but coming down is something that in your experience is very important. What is coming down?
Coming down is a slang term for when the trip is over and the chemicals wearing off and you're sort of descending more into your personality and mind.
Now, what most people will know is that if you have been drinking, then you fall asleep and you wake up and you have a hangover. But that's not what we're talking about. Coming down is different from a hangover.
Well, in a way, it's similar. If you're talking about the after effect of the drug, I mean, the after effect of alcohol is a hangover. The after effect of LSD, for example, psychedelics, can be more profound and more dangerous depending on who the person is and why they've taken the trip, etc. When you're on an LSD trip, your personality tend to have some distance from your normal personality. You tend to have some distance from your normal way of thinking and relating. You're really fully in the present. Whereas normal, how we are, is our mind is running off into the future, running into the past, that sort of thing. With LSD, the intensity of it is so strong that you're very, very much affected by things in the present, in the moment. It's for the first time for many people, they have the feeling, my God, I'm really here, which is something that through our conditioning and through our conditioned mind, we don't have. So this is the reason people take the drug.
To get that experience of being here now and experience maybe a mystical feeling, experience the fullness of colors and impressions and smell.
If people have taken it before, people maybe the first time people take it because they're friends or something, but if they've taken it and liked it and they take it again, it's usually because they like that experience of being fully present. So in a way, this is similar to, the message of the mystics and the Buddhas and everything, that be here now and be fully here now and let go of the past and let go of the future, etc. Well, LSD is a kind of shortcut. It's also a previews of coming attractions. That this experience on LSD is a little similar to the experience that the mystics and the Buddhas are talking about.
Are you saying that if I did enough yoga or meditation or stand on my head or do all these things the yogis do, that I would get a similar state of mind and state of being?
Yeah, something
similar.
Something better, because it's not chemical, and something that hopefully more permanent. And when you get to a state called enlightenment, what they talk about enlightenment, then you're in that permanent, like LSD state. And if you want to know what that's something like a permanent LSD state, it's a little bit like being with a baby. Because when you're with a baby, he's totally in the present. There's no past, the mind is going, or the future. If he's happy, he never remembers a time when he wasn't happy, and never conceive of a time when he's not going to be happy. And
if he's hungry, he wants to eat.
If he's hungry and he's in pain from the hunger, as far as he's concerned, he's always been hungry, and he's always going to be hungry. So this is the experience, in a way, of heaven and of hell also. Because hell is an experience where you're miserable, and you're always going to be miserable, and you always were miserable. And heaven's an experience where you're happy, and you always were happy, and you're always going to be happy. And this is one of the reasons why, in growing up, we sort of come out of this state and use the mind as a way to kind of get away from such an intensity, but we pay a big price for it. LSD gives you this experience again. Many people experience something like babyhood again with it. There is the mind still going.
And this is why you as a psychiatrist say, After the trip, when you're unprotected, when you are like a baby, when you're really, all your defense systems are gone, be careful. Coming back into this world could be, could be as important and needs to be as gentle as possible.
Yeah, because you're coming really, if you think of it, you're coming from babyhood to adulthood in 20 minutes or 30 minutes. So it's a very fast transition. And if it's not done right, or if the person has serious problems with his adulthood, with his personality, with his mind or something, it's a big shock. And in some ways, a person can be damaged, or he can be in worse shape than he was before. It can be just mildly worse. Yeah. So that.
But for instance, if someone ends up having eaten magic mushrooms or taken LSD or some stuff, and he ends up in a police cell, and this moment of coming down, this half hour, people are beating him or screaming at him, that could leave permanent marks in his psyche.
It can, especially if he anchors it by coming to some conclusions about it and some agreements with himself.
Like, I hate this world and it will always be bad.
Well, like, policemen are horrible people, and I'm gonna, basically never cooperate with them. I'm basically their enemy. If you come to these kind of conclusions, which sometimes
which are resolutions in yourself, you build a belief system that you then carry with you.
I mean, if you look at small children. Yeah. Somebody punches you in the nose, and the next day they're playing together because he's not coming to any conclusion. That was that experience, and not, And as grown-ups, we look at that and think, wow, that's really amazing, because if somebody punches us in the nose, usually we come to a conclusion, hey, this is that kind of person. He's a narcissistic, this kind of person. Therefore, we never want to play you. When you come to the conclusion, then that sort of anchors this barrier. And it's very hard to overcome it. Children don't come to those conclusions this way, and subsequently they go through it. Mm-hmm. Once you come to a conclusion, that's another way of saying it becomes crystallized. And our personalities are our conclusions, that are sort of crystallized in a certain way. And sometimes we've been crystallized wrong because we came to certain conclusions at 7 years old, certain other conclusions at 11, certain other conclusions at 14, and this has all helped form our personality. Mm-hmm. And basically, sometimes in later life we realize, wow, we're really crystallized wrong.
And then you go see a psychiatrist.
You can go see a psychiatrist, or you can also sometimes an enlightened psychiatrist, or certain times in a therapeutic community, or certain times other people have experimented with the psychedelics also. And the psychedelics can also help to decrystallize these personalities, because the personality is a barrier between one and the outside reality. If you can dissolve that personality, you again experience an immediate experience with the outside reality, like babyhood again. So it renews your excitement about life, etc. So many people that's the best of taking a psychedelic, is it's going to re-inspire you in some way towards life, wherein life feels a little bit draggy and nothing's happening. Usually it's because the personality is crystallized and you're getting certain responses automatically from people, and and many aspects of that are unconscious. So it means that the experiences one has are repeated all the time, and many people feel that they're not growing. So this is a possibility of growth. And because it's a possibility of growth, one has to treat it with great respect and sacredly, especially coming down from it, because coming down means coming back into the old mind and the old personality.
So in short, when you're out of the trip and your mother happens to call in this nasty tone and say, you haven't done this, that's not the right thing.
Yeah, you would love to avoid that, because your personality that formed to deal with that is going to come back and be even stronger.
The buttons are pushed immediately.
Yeah, because if it's not there, if that personality has receded during the LSD trip and the mother calls, it's going to be very painful. That's why that personality came in, so that it didn't become so painful. And sometimes it happens. If that happens, that shock happens, one reacts and says, I'm going to make that personality even stronger, you know.
Push her out of my life.
Well, push her, and also people that energy represents, because these are all archetypes we're dealing with. So if you have a dominating mother, there's always, you know, a lot of dominating people in this society, and you put up a personality. But if you're taking that LSD to sort of somehow break through, then you have to find a more intelligent way to deal with this mother, who then that personality structure that you built up at 11 years old. So it gives you a chance to create new defenses, more intelligent defenses that don't drain so much of your energy. You may protect yourself from that mother, but it also protects you from falling in love, and it protects you from other things you don't want to be protected.
So you really
from.
think it's important. Now, another word that might make that clear is re-entry. I like the word because I always have to think about spaceships coming down and UFO creatures coming onto Earth, and they're coming into a totally new Earth, and they have a chance to really see and say, hey, these are humans, what do they do? So I like the word re-entry.
Okay.
Coming back on the earth, your feet on the ground. Now, I've experienced it myself, you've experienced it. What is the most important guideline? I mean, should it be warm, happy, healthy, fed, not fed?
Well, look how they deal with spaceships. I mean, when you get these things going out, Houston Control is very concerned how these things come back in. You know, it should be in the ocean. The ships should be right away. Everybody's alerted and work. So it should be treated this way. I mean, it's a major event, the coming down. You want to come down, hopefully, slowly. That is, coming back into the personality or back into the mind should be done with as much consciousness as possible, so that one can see, hey, this personality I've been using, but this personality is not exactly me. I have, because it wasn't me on the acid, and now, you know, I've identified myself with this specific personality. But when you come down slowly, you can see, well, do I want to pick up this personality? You start to have a little bit of choice, and that's what you're trying to get by coming in back slowly, that the person has some choice. I mean, I don't have to, because maybe this mother example, the way you've learned to deal with that is to kind of keep an angry piece of your own personality out there, so this mother, you know, doesn't get to you. So you have a certain angry veneer. Certain people have a certain angry veneer to their personality, and it was originally set up to protect against, say, an angry mother. But as you're coming down, you can see, I want to pick up this angry personality and make it the dominant cover of my personality. You start to have a little choice in it, or at least you start to have an awareness that, hey, I am not exactly synonymous with this angry tone of voice or angry veneer that I'm having. And so therefore, it becomes what we call in psychiatry ego-dystonic rather than ego-syntonic. Ego-syntonic means, this is me. Ego-dystonic means, doctor, why am I getting so angry all the time? So then you're starting to create a little distance from it. And by creating some distance from it, you're starting to get free of it and starting to change.
So you have seen results of people coming down in a gentle way, taking the opportunity to change a little bit.
Yeah, especially if the purpose was healthy, that you really wanted to get free from this mind. And you don't want to rush right back into it again. Because if you rush right back into it again, and the mind takes a little revenge, and it's even stronger than it was before, then you've really undone the whole effect of the LSD, except that it was a pleasurable thing for a few hours or something. But the end result, you're not going for any end result this way. But if you're looking to have an end result where your whole way of life has a little bit more playfulness in it, or a little bit more, that there's some change in the personality.
Less defense.
Less defensive, for example.
Less crystallized.
And you've got a crystallized personality. You want to kind of come back slowly so that you can stay the witness of this crystallized personality.
Could this actually be misused? Could you take in a military training, take people to an LSD trip and, bring them back and really fuck them up and
It's a little bit like, it's a good example, but it's a little bit like if you think of, putting iron in the fire, and then you can sort of bend it any way you want. If you think of LSD, then it's like a fire, and the personality is like iron. Once you give it LSD, it's a little bit more malleable. But you have to watch. If you come back real fast, you're going to bend it back into the same place, or it can be bent back in worse places.
Yeah. Now, do kids I mean, we have the house culture and the disco culture, and there's a thing that always amazed me. It's called the chill-out rooms. Yeah, they have this idea that you need chill-out rooms. In your view, because lots of these kids take podos or ecstasy or whatever, that's a good thing for them, to have a place at a party where they can chill out and rest and come to their senses in a slow way.
Yeah, I'm not so familiar with this concept. I mean, I have my picture when you're saying it, but I'm not exactly sure, you know.
Oh, well, it's a place usually at a party where there is nice light and softer music and pillows and whatever, where people can chill out, really come to the senses.
Yeah, well, this is a good idea. It's certainly a good idea. Have some place where you can, you know, relax, because then you have a chance to be more the witness. In fact, the really perfect way to end a psychedelic experience is with a meditation, because meditation is, again, trying to bring you to the place where you're the witness, you're the watcher, you're the consciousness watching the mind, the personality, whatever. LSD sort of takes you there automatically, and the personality sort of dissolved and you're all there in the present. But it should be leading people to meditation. Meditation makes it so that you are more in control of your own self. Mm-hmm. You are the watcher, and you can. It's done without chemicals. So really, basically, if it leads into that, or if you have some place where you can go and have a meditation afterwards, that's nicer. And meditation works better in a quiet, gentle, soft music, cozy place, not disturbed, like what you're describing, the chill-out room. So it's sort of a halfway to meditation, yeah.
This whole concept, which you could call the conscious trip, that you start out with talking with someone about what you want to achieve, make a list, like an agenda in your mind, what you want, then actually taking the stuff, making sure that when you get cold, you know, that it's a nice environment, that the police doesn't call in, your mother doesn't call, nobody calls in and say, I get 300 guilders from you or something. And then coming out in a gentle way, that whole process, what I get from you think it could be, or in fact, in most cases, it is beneficial.
Well, I you know, it's really hard to talk about everybody, because you know, some...
But in your experiences, is most of the time, what you've seen, it's a good process?
Well, I mean, you know, there's so much of it going on, and I've had some personal experiments, and also with friends, and you know, I've grown up in the 60s, and it was a little different group of people at that time, also using it, etc. But you would think, you know, that... you know, there's different people in this world. So
no, let's ask it different. The people that you know who have taken a lot of psychedelics and a lot of tripping, can you recognize them? Can you say these people are more... Well, let's put it in my way. When I met people like Leary, and he was a bit crazy too, but he was loving in a way. And I've met many of those people, and I found him more forgiving, more tolerant.
It can be a powerful tool towards transformation, depending on the person's tendencies. People can also make a superiority and an ego trip about it. Hey, I've done a lot of acid, and the people who hadn't done acid, I mean, aren't really as good as me, and they can end up in worse shape, just personality-wise. Some people end up also in a psychiatric hospital about it if they're not really prepared, because they've identified themselves totally with this personality, and now they're experiencing something else, and they're, you know...
Oh, that's interesting. You say if you are very strong in a certain crystallized form, you go to a trip, the shock might be too heavy.
Especially if that crystallized form is one of the only threads kind of holding somebody down. I mean, they may have be a person who's not functioning so well anyhow, doesn't have a job, doesn't have a major relationship, relationships with people aren't so good, and he sees himself as a you know, an expert on something, and that's his whole reason d'etre. This is his whole being in the world.
Would you, as a psychiatrist, be able to say about all your patients, well, that one should never do LSD because that is a dangerous thing?
I think, you know, people, it is a dangerous drug, and of course, talking with a psychiatric hat on, a medical hat, one tends to be a little cautious because, one's license is at stake, et cetera, et cetera. So, it depends. But if one talks this way, the people who basically you'd be reluctant to kind of take over your apartment when you're out of the country, or also the people you don't really want to think on LSD. If the person doesn't have good relations and he's not got some profession that he's growing in, and he's not growing.
Are you saying that the people who would likely end up in a psychiatric hospital anyway are also the ones you would not advise to take LSD? It's kind of putting them in a corner, isn't it?
People who are in the psychiatric hospital.
Well, people who have a tendency to become neurotic, schizoid.
Well, it's then you're talking. Then it's a much more dangerous situation. I mean, you might, if you were really having somebody who was crystallized so badly, and there was no results happening, from normal psychiatric.
But then you come in a totally different arena. What we're talking about is normal people, relatively normal people who say, "Hey, let me experience this." And what your advice is anyway is, please think about coming down. When it's not only the trip that has to be nice, but afterwards you have to reintegrate in a nice and gentle way.
I mean, if you're a baby, and all of a sudden you're pushing that baby fast to grow up, most children will react against it, and sometimes parents are pushing. Okay, now you're 5 years, 7 years old. It's time to act like a man, or they do a very fast push. Sometimes it has very painful results, and basically, it's such a beautiful thing potentially to experience being a baby, which can happen on psychedelics, the best of it. That when you're dragged off of this babyhood very fast, that you're certainly going to feel some sadness, frustration, anger. Who's made me do this? How did it happen? And if you are not used to thinking very well, if your intellect's not very well developed, I mean, a lot of things can happen. So basically, you want to try to make the trip from babyhood to grown-upness a little bit gentle. And letting the person know, hey, wait, you don't have to really come back in that personality. See the choice at this moment. You weren't like this 5 seconds ago. Do you really need to? Do you really want to, develop this angry personality so fast? So that the person starts to realize that they can stop being so crystallized. They can be stopped so identified with that personality. That's really where you'd like to get them. And they can work on their own about it.
Okay. Sid Kaufman on coming down.
Yeah.
I wrote down to let reality in anew, because that's what you're doing. Experience the world again, coming down from a trip. Thank you, Sid.
Thank you.